So here is an experimental thumb cluster I built that has 5 keys instead of 4 around the sides. And here's another one over here that has 6 keys around the sides. So this one is not electrically functional. This is just a mechanical mock-up. This one actually works. So this is a fully functional design. And then this is a version that I made to try and experiment a little bit with the contours of how all this stuff has to be shaped. And what I can say is that, the thumb is one of the most variable parts of the hand anatomy in terms of the size and shape of the tip of the thumb and the sides of it, the width of it, all of it. It's very, very different from person to person. So getting something that a thumb fits in deeply enough to be able to actuate in these ways is actually quite a challenge. So what I've done right here is, I've put 5 keys around the thumb, but it's difficult for me to reliably get each of them without accidentally hitting the other ones. It's a lot of angular differentiation to make. And I think it's possible to improve that. For example, this thing here gives a lot more room by having this big curved key on one side and a slope on the inner key to kind of make that more accessible so you're not stabbing with the thumb. You're pressing down more than stabbing. But just overall, it's really tough to tune these shapes to fit even my one thumb versus trying to tune it so it would fit every single person's. But in the spirit of keeping stuff weird, I do like to push the envelope on that. And what you can see here is a thumb design. This is symmetrical, so I'll put my left thumb in here for the moment. That basically gives you 6 keys around the side and 1 in the center. Now, this is too narrow even for me, so this would have to be expanded quite a bit, which means it's no longer the same size as a finger cluster. So it's definitely not a straightforward just use a finger cluster situation, although you can do it. There are some people who like to do it. I don't find it as comfortable personally. And I find that getting the right combinations of keys that I can hit at the same time with the traditional data hand layout is not as straightforward. There's nothing to say that you can't do that yourself and choose to approach the layout in a different way. That's totally legit. But this one I do think is really cool just because it has this symmetry. So you still get that like left and right for kind of, tab and enter or space and backspace or whatever. And then you also have these diagonals, which if you can hit them independently, this is a ton of keys. And chording these is also really easy, right? Because I can just go straight down and grab both of these or both of these. I can come up for these, straight up, out here, down here, etc. But you have to remember that at some point the cognitive load gets really high. And I'm not trying to make this any harder to learn as it stands than it already is, because it already asks that you remap a few things in your brain. You learn to use layer keys and thumb keys a lot more heavily than most people have ever used them. So while Ergomet keyboard nerds are going to be really stoked to have like, oh, I can have 8 million keys on, without any motion. That's great, but I still want the product to remain accessible to people. So, I'm curious if it's possible to do something like this and have a really functional thumb cluster where you can also get, the equivalent of like holding Shift and Control and Tab or whatever, because I can actually hit Control, Shift, Tab at the same time with just my left thumb on a regular data hand thumb cluster. So, yeah, I hope this is useful to kind of consider just like how much harder it is to fit a cluster around the tip of a thumb when a lot of my users have thumbs that are literally like twice as big as mine, and they can all use a standard data hand thumb cluster, which is like such a cool thing. It's such a little triumph of design, and I take no credit for that, right? Like that was Dill and the team at Data Hand way back in the day who figured out that stuff about how to map to the thumb anatomy so you could use the pad, the nail, the knuckle, the down, and the up motions all independently. So I hope this is edifying, and feel free to keep asking me crazy questions about weird things I do or might do or won't do or should do or any of that. Talk to you guys soon.